Hello, my name is Olurotimi Osha. Today is May the 1st, 2026. It's the beginning of Mental Health Awareness Month. Of course, we're out of April, crime-ridden April, in which there was a lot of distress. Um, you know, of course, clearly, people, maybe suffering from the pressure cooker of America and perhaps some other form of mental illness. Um, we, of course, unfortunately, suffered the news of the uxoricide and suicide committed by the former Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Justin Fairfax, and in which he, killed his wife, Dr. Serena Fairfax. I woke up to some good news today. I learned that the current governor of Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, has ordered that the uh, flags should be at half staff in Virginia on May 4th to honor the life of Dr. Serena Fairfax. May her soul continue to rest in peace. I've done videos in which I argued that um, if Justin Fairfax family had, you know, possibly filed an emergency evaluation petition in Virginia, it's called an emergency custody order. It might have averted the unfortunate tragedies, right? We don't know if he was struggling with a mental illness. And as I've said, Virginia is one of those places. It's a state that uh, falsely accusing someone of having a mental illness can actually cause you to get charged with a crime. So maybe people are less reluctant, are more reluctant, right, filing emergency petitions to have someone involuntarily committed for an evaluation and treatment for a mental illness in Virginia. Um, Today, I'm going to discuss my situation. Of course, I was the victim of an abuse of an emergency evaluation petition on May 14th. It was approved by a judge, Bibi. It was wrongfully approved by a judge, BBM Berry, without my knowledge. It was an ex parte order. Ex parte, that means it's done without the other party knowing. So a man called Jide Iwarere, an octogenarian who's misrepresented himself as my uncle, an impersonator, went on May 14, 2023, after he had assaulted me in my home on May 14, 2023, with a neighbor attempted to come and kidnap me, right? And after he had initially tried to pressure me to withdraw an equal employment opportunity commission complaint and an Office of Inspector General complaint against one, a Jamie A. Simon, a Kirsten S. Risbeck, and at the time, the Undersecretary of Defense, Kathleen Miller, and a Jose Conejo and a Laura Devlin Dominguez, I think is her name. These are all people who were working at the Pentagon, at the Department of Defense. It's my constitutional right to file a petition. Iwarere, for some harebrained reason, now started to call me, started to attempt to pressure me to withdraw my complaint. It was going through the proceedings. I had actually hired an attorney who was representing me. It was a national law firm by the name of Tully Rinke, right? Tully Rinke, and I paid them about $15,000 to $20,000 out of pocket, cash, right, to represent me. I paid I paid money out of my pocket, right? So, and it was me following the system, right? It wasn't a capricious filing because it was going through the system. Judges were seeing it, they were approving my motions. At the time, I had an attorney representing me, but as I said, which I paid. But bizarrely, Jide Wari came and started to try to pressure me. If I didn't know better, I'd say it was a RICO violation, right? Uh, Government officials are also are liable to being prosecuted for a RICO violation. RICO violation is a Racketeering, Influenced, and Corrupt Organization Act. It is popularly known for having been the law that was used to dismantle the mafia. Famously, Rudy Giuliani used it in New York, and it particularly was used against the mafia because it was very difficult for prosecutors to get convictions against the mafia or to get anybody to be able to testify against the mafia in court because witnesses that they would subpoena would suddenly end up in hospital or would disappear. They'd be killed, right? Or they'd have some kind of accident just a day or a week before their court appearance. So I had a court appearance as well, a motion that was due in court. It was going through the process just a week before Jide Iwarere first assaulted me on May 14, 2023. Fortunately, I had a witness, my friend, and she spoke with the police, right? And then May 16, I was raided in my home. It was a swatting. I've done videos explaining the swatting and the false flag operation, which was orchestrated in um, most likely by the Department of the Navy with Montgomery County Police. But it was a false flag, so the Navy has tried to, Navy attorneys have claimed it wasn't them, that it was Jide Iwarere that did it all by himself. So that's the idea of a false flag operation. A false flag has the element of plausible deniability, and this is very common in the United States government. It's a reason why we have to be very careful because we have rogue operations in the Department of Defense, in the Pentagon, the CIA. They're not supposed to be doing things against American citizens because it violates our constitutional rights. It violates the integrity of our systems and our values. So this is what they call a deep state. That's why Americans are not sure. They don't trust the government. Americans still today, majority think the CIA killed JFK, right? And covered it up. They think it was the government that killed CIA and that Lee Harvey Oswald was just a plant, that he was staged, he was framed, that that it was the government, that we have a deep state that killed JFK. Till today, this is what a majority of Americans believe, right? Of course, there's that movie Oliver Stone. I don't believe in conspiracy theories, right? I'm somebody who is well educated. I'm a historian. I have a law degree from George Washington. Sorry, yeah, George Washington University Law School. I got my Juris Doctor from there. By the way, I have to give a disclaimer. Everything I'm saying today does not constitute legal advice. Nothing I say constitutes legal advice. And I'm not your lawyer. I'm not giving legal advice. I'm not licensed to practice law, even though I'm qualified to teach law, to discuss law, as I have a Juris Doctor degree from George Washington University Law School. And I also did a program in international human rights law at Oxford University in England. I also studied as I was an intellectual property law fellow at Bocconi University in Italy, Milan, Italy. They're prestigious. It's called the Harvard of Italy. So I had a wonderful time in Europe. So I like to discuss uh, issues dealing with human rights, international human rights, because I've studied it. I studied the European human rights regime, right, in while I was in Italy. So today, what I'm going to do is discuss how um, Suburban Hospital committed medical malpractice, violating my my rights, right, my human rights, HIPAA laws, and in order to obstruct justice, right. Um, they didn't file the emergency evaluation petition. Jide Wire is the one who committed perjury, right, and he used a lawyer, he used a judge, Judge Bibi, to get a fraudulent, a completely fabricated emergency evaluation petition. Everything he wrote in there was a fabrication from his demented mind. I haven't been given an opportunity to defend it, to dispute it. Under the law, I'm entitled, if I'm accused of something, because that was an accusation. I'm accused of something. I'm entitled to dispute it. I'm entitled to a hearing, right? I'm entitled to a notice. First of all, you need to notify me. At no time did they give me a notice. Did I know? At no time did they notify my family, because if they had notified my family, in the petition he wrote that he was my uncle and that I had no other family and he was my uncle. That's a fabrication. That's perjury. Jide Iwarere is not my uncle. There's no consanguinity between us. I don't know him. He's been in America since 1977. And first of all, we're not related. He didn't bring me to America. He didn't pay a dime for my university. He has never supported me or sponsored me in anything. I have to make that clear, right? So all of that was a fabrication, right? He fabricated his relationship with me. My family's already taken Jide Iwarere to court in Nigeria, right? My mother's already filed a motion against him, a petition against him, a sworn affidavit that Jide Iwarere is not my uncle. Everything he wrote in his emergency evaluation petition was filled with malicious lies, wicked and malicious lies, wicked and malicious, as my mom put it, right? But basically canards, right? Fabrications, and he acted maliciously. I have done videos talking about Jide Iwarere's fraudulently obtained EAP. So the thing is, once you have an emergency evaluation petition, the objective is it's law enforcement, though. It's the police who go and execute it. The idea is to get the person in handcuffs and take them to a hospital for physicians, psychiatrists, forensic psychiatrists, because it has to do with their mental health for them to evaluate it. And they determine if the person should be admitted long-term, committed long-term, or, you release them, right? But once they go through the process of getting someone, taking somebody's right and getting them uh, uh, petition already, it's very unlikely that a physician is going to send them back home because one, they violated their rights, their constitutional rights, by getting them in handcuffs, removing them and taking them in a hospital in handcuffs, right? So once that happens, if they were to send them back and say, well, this was an error, it was mistaken, they are liable. And it's the state that's liable. It's a lot of money. They're going to pay that person a lot of money because that meant they were being detained. It doesn't matter. They were being detained in a hospital against their will, right? Uh, it doesn't matter the length of detention, but that's a automatic lawsuit. So the state, it's the state that's going to pay money. It's a lot of money, a lot of damages. So once that happens, so you see, they're not going to just go back and say, well, we made a mistake. That was a mistake. No, they're going to go through the process of the fraud. And that was exactly what Suburban Hospital did. I don't know how they selected Suburban Hospital to take me to. I've done videos in how I was swatted. I'm not going to discuss that now. But importantly, I'm going to talk about the... so I was shot in the head. These, right, these are stitches. I was shot. I was told it was a taser dart. So these are permanent stitch scarring from the stitching, right? To remove the taser dart. So I was bleeding. I didn't know what it was. I'd been shot. I'd been tasered multiple times. And the police released the SWAT team or whatever. Because I ran back into my home, locked my door. They released some kind of, chemical bomb, grenade or whatever, It's exploded gases, maybe the petrochemical, psychoactive. I remember on that day, what was on my mind was, oh my God, is this crack? So they released some kind of illegal chemical, psychoactive drugs that they were not supposed to do. At the hospital later on, a nurse told me it was tear gas and pepper spray. I don't think that was true. I've never had suffered tear gas, but my eyes went watery. I didn't remember my eyes being watery. I know I broke out in a sweat. All of a sudden, it was instantaneous. And what came to my mind that day was it was a drug. These are drugs, right? It released a narcotic on me. And I have my reason, but as I mentioned prior to that, it appeared I had been drugged. By the way, I wasn't going through any emergency crisis. I was at because I was at the gym the day before, May 15th. There's evidence. One old white man who said his name is David threatened me, went about asking my friends questions. Jide Iwarere had filed the emergency petition and it was approved since May 14, 2026. One of the things that saved me, because eventually they were using fraudulent, incompetent to stand trial orders ordered by Judge James Bonifan. They were committing fraud upon the court because I refused an evaluation, right? I was conscious, I refused to be evaluated. So a judge ordered the state of Maryland filed false charges against me, saying the police officers who came to deliver the petition that I assaulted them, right? So they used that as a to abuse the process, right? That's Judge James Bonifant. He abused the process and found me incompetent to stand trial and ordered me to go and do a competence, uh, get treatment or do another competency evaluation. It turns out that where they do the treatment is in a psychiatric hospital or behavioral health hospital. However, fortunately for me, in the state of Maryland, you have a right to refuse, and then you have a right under the law for your family to be involved. My mom would always talk to the hospital that no, there's nothing wrong with this person, and I had a right to refuse. And fortunately, the psychiatrist there ended up, and there's a patient's right advisor there. They ended up saying, no, there's nothing wrong with me, that the judge sent me there wrongfully. And the doctors in the whole hospital were on my side. The judge sent me here wrongfully. This man has no mental illness. He's not meant to be here. So they didn't treat me for anything. They didn't give me any medication, nothing. They actually wrote and documented this man has no mental illness. I posted it, so it's a violation of my constitutional rights, right? Uh, it violates our First Amendment rights, our beliefs. I don't believe in psychiatry, right? And especially if it has to do with fraud. So I'm going to continue. I want to keep this video short. But there was a lot of fraud going on. So on that day, May 16, some kind of toxic psychochemical, drug that had been released. It could have been LSD. It could have been cocaine in gas form. I don't know. Because for some reason, Jide Iwarere went to tell my mother that when the police removed me from my home, I was high on cocaine. I don't take cocaine. I've never seen cocaine. My mother knows I don't use drugs. I neither drink nor smoke, and I don't use drugs. I don't experiment with drugs, right? So my mother knew this was a lie, but she was terrified because at this time I was locked up in jail. So Jide Iwarere was trying to get my mother to write a note that they should treat me because he lied to her that, hey, I've been arrested for drugs. I was in trouble. She couldn't talk to me. She didn't know what was going on. And I had a friend. It was my friend that I told, go and tell my mother I'm in jail. And, things like that, jail, those are stigmatizing. I come from a responsible, respectable family, right? I'd never been to jail, never been arrested, never been involved in drugs or anything. I'm a middle-aged man. So it was shocking for my mom to hear this. So when my friend would call her and tell her, my friend didn't know her. It was my friend who called and told my mother while I was locked up wrongfully in jail. It was an African American, right? So she called my mom to tell my mom that, hey, I've been locked up in jail. So my mom would just call Iwarere. And Jide Iwarere cooked up this cock and bull story that the police arrested me for drugs, for cocaine, and tried to get her to get me to write a note to get me to take medication, because that was the whole purpose, right? The Department of Defense, Department of the Navy, in order to dismiss and discredit me, the petition I'd written against Jamie A. Simon and the other senior executives in the Department of Defense for harassment, sexual harassment, and fraud and other misconduct. What they wanted to do was to say, well, this person is delusional, that he had an undiagnosed mental illness that made him come to make these false complaints, and so you should dismiss his claims, right? The way they acted, it's only, the Americans live too much in Hollywood, right? So scripted, these false narratives, so obvious, right? The only you only see these things in movies, but well, maybe I guess it's Hollywood, it's art depicting life, because it turns out they have these harebrained schemes, right? These sinister dystopian schemes. This is what was going on. And but let me I'll continue this video because I want to keep them short. But so in any event, my mom didn't believe. Eventually I was fortunate. I was able to speak with my mom, and my mom listened for 5 days, right? I was calling her from jail. And eventually my mom spoke. My mom said, hey, they told her that I'd gone crazy, that I didn't know what was going on, that I was delusional, that I was incoherent, that I couldn't say anything. She said she doesn't notice any difference in me. This is a mother who gave birth to me. My mom, by the way, is a sophisticated woman. She's traveled to over 30 countries, right? I was talking about how when Prince He's now King Charles III. When he got married to Lady Diana, right, the late, who became Princess of Wales in 1981, my father flew us. My father was a bank CEO and a bank chairman. My father lived in England, trained in England, is an educated of the largest industrial development bank in Africa, Bank of Industry, right? It's in Nigeria. It was called Nigerian Industrial Development Bank. He was chairman of RICO Merchant Bank. He went on to start his own businesses, owned a leading stockbroking firm, investment firm in Nigeria. My father's late now. My father flew us to England to be there for the wedding. To be in England, we were in London at the time. We stayed in Swiss Cottage Holiday Inn, right? So we were there. My mom's a sophisticated woman. You can't pull wool over her eyes. They tried to treat my mom like she was this. They thought, Americans, at least in Montgomery County, Maryland, I guess there's such provincial people. When they think of Africans, they think of uneducated, unsophisticated people, right? They don't realize that they have people who are more widely traveled than they are more, they're intelligent. So it's part of the racism of Montgomery County, Maryland. They're neo-Nazis. The whole operation, the way it was conducted, they were like Nazi operatives, right? So in any event, my mom was aghast. She was shocked. She was terrified that this guy told her that I was strung out on cocaine. I couldn't believe, because this was what she was telling me. But later on, my siblings confirmed it and said, "Hey, this was what Jide Iwarere said," and they refuted the claims. My mom said, "No, you're not taking any medication. I've never taken this. I've never seen a mental illness in this guy. I've never taken him to go and see a psychiatrist. He's an old man. I don't see anything wrong with this person. If you charge him with a crime, then go ahead. Let him go to trial. Let him defend himself in court, but don't use the pretext that, oh, we've charged him with a crime. Apparently that's what they do in Maryland. They charge you with a false crime. It's what they've been doing to the black community. They charge you with a crime, and then they say, well, if you go and take treatment, that it was a mental illness that caused you to cause this crime. If you take treatment, we will drop the charges or put you on probation or something. I said, heck no. Because they offered me a plea bargain, right? Right over the first month, they offered me a plea bargain, and this was what I refused. I said, that's not going to happen, right? I'm not taking that. They offered me a plea bargain that go and do a mental health evaluation, take treatment, we'll drop the charges. I said, no, that's not going to happen because you have lied. The charge statement is a fabrication, right? So I've taken a lot of time with this, I'm trying to give the background, right? So what my intention was to show the role of Suburban Hospital, right, in violating RICO laws, in violating my constitutional rights, the under 18 USC Section 241, right, and into obstruct justice. They falsified, um, filing false government statements, right? And their role in defamation and wrongfully detaining me. So it was a judge who ordered my detention, but that's supposed to be temporary. So they need two physicians to see me. So obviously I'm in the hospital. So two physicians would certify, they'd write, okay, this person is should go and see a psychiatric. So you should go and see a psychiatrist. Basically, that's what the two physicians are doing. The two physicians were Barton Leonard and Guru Gafari. Now, I don't recall ever seeing this person before. These two physicians. The two people that I saw that wore name tags of Guru Gafari. One, she was an Ethiopian woman who served me my food. So she was some kind of assistant, right? Serving low-level assistant. She was one who cleaned my room, took my food, served my food. She was not a physician. She was an Ethiopian who could barely speak English. She was kind to me. Barton Leonard took my vitals. He was a West Indian sounding guy, black man, tall, had a beard. He had the name Barton Leonard. And when I asked him for his name, he told me Barton Leonard. So I was recalling everything. I had, So I'm going to continue this video. I was just giving the background. So this was at Suburban Hospital. Suburban Hospital is located at 8600 Old Georgetown Road in Bethesda, Maryland, in Montgomery County. Apparently, it's affiliated with National Institutes of Health, right? It's affiliated with the National Institutes of Health, apparently just right across from it. The National Institutes of Health is where the person I had filed a complaint against for misconduct and for harassment and sexual harassment, Jamie A. Simon. She's a Jewish woman. Her father is a physician there at the National Institutes of Health. This was what she had told me. Her father was an NIH physician. So it's kind of highly unusual, right? I'm going to do another video, separate video again, discussing MedStar, where I was eventually sent to. MedStar is also very interesting that the parent of Supraja Murali, who was the Department of Defense attorney, right, representing the Department of Defense, representing Jamie A. Simon and Kirsten Risbeck and the other management officials I'd filed a complaint against. That's my right to petition, the First Amendment. Her parent is a physician at least, that's what the public records show, was a physician at MedStar Hospital, right, where I was eventually taken to. Supraja Murali, the attorney, is the one who accused me. She accused me in a deposition of trying to destroy the careers of Jamie A. Simon and Kirsten Risbeck. I filed a complaint. She made a bizarre statement saying I found it funny that I was trying to destroy their careers. That was a harebrained statement because at no time did I find it funny. I was the one who was defending myself. These racist women and lying women who can't take no for an answer and who defamed me, were responsible for their own actions, and they're accountable for their own actions. But this is Supraja Murali. She refuses to hold white women to be accountable, to account. She doesn't want them to account for their actions, right? For their harebrained, unlawful criminal actions, because they did something that was defamatory. They committed fraud and made fraudulent misrepresentations against me, right? They're responsible for their actions. They're responsible for their misconduct. I'm not responsible for their actions. I'm defending myself, and I'm using legal means, right? Legal means. That's what I had done. So it's interesting that my adversaries, right? My adversaries, people I was in a legal dispute with, right? That I was taken for treatment, to be treated where their parents worked, right? That's like asking President Donald Trump to go and eat food at a restaurant in Iran owned by the son of the Ayatollah he had murdered. I mean, I didn't murder anybody, but that's, I'm just explaining that these people are at war, right? You're likely to be poisoned, to be harmed if you go and eat in your enemy's camp, right? Because these people are the enemy, right? I'm in a dispute with them. There's no way I'm going to go and and be treated in their parents' hospitals or their facilities, right? Why were these facilities chosen? Is it coincidence? I don't want that kind of coincidence. I want to avoid it. And my family, if I'm in an emergency situation in which I require treatment, my family wants to have a say. My family has a right to have a say. I have a right to have a say. And that's why, of course, I left these places, right? I'm going to continue the video and talk about how Suburban Hospital and MedStar Hospital committed RICO violations, committed fraud and medical malpractice, and violated my constitutional and human rights. So, as I said, some kind of drug was used on me in the chemical thing that was released, the chemical gases, some kind of petrochemicals that are illegal into my apartment. the police or SWAT team or whatever eventually broke into my apartment. I was, passing out. I was disoriented. Whatever they used incapacitated me. And then they came, handcuffed me, placed me on a gurney, removed me naked from my apartment. They placed me in an ambulance. By the time they placed me in the ambulance, they administered a drug on me, right, that knocked me out. From there, it was lights out. I saw, I was terrified because I first saw white faces, in the ambulance. Saw one black guy hovering over me. I was completely naked. I was alarmed, of course. They administered something I would later learn was ketamine, right? Ketamine is a drug without my consent, without my family's consent. What ketamine does is it induces a trance-like state, right? It induces a trance-like state. Um, it's called a cataleptic state, right? In which it's like you're in a hypnosis, right? So your brain, your conscious mind, the conscious mind, there are no signals going to the conscious side of your mind. It's blocked. However, your reflex actions, your reflexes are intact. They remain intact. So the lower level systems, part of your brain that control like your reflex movements, like your eye movements, right? Something called nystagmus, right? Actually was going on. I have to stop this video soon, but something called nystagmus, that's the system in which your eyes are moving around. It's like you're in a trance-like state. Um, so whoever is observing you, you're actually asleep. You're unconscious. It's like a dissociative anesthesia. That's what the state. It's a medical state that ketamine induces. So that's what they used on me in the ambulance. Dissociative ketamine. It induces a dissociative anesthetic state, right? Um, you're in a cataleptic state. So you're like in a trance-like state, right? Like a state of psychosis. So you don't know what's going on, but your eyes are open, they're moving, and you can sneeze. You're responding to your reflexes are still intact, but your mind is not conscious. So it's as if you're actually asleep. You don't know what's going on when you're asleep, but someone looking at you thinks you're awake, but thinks you're you're intoxicated or in a psychotic state. So that's what they illegally applied to me and dumped me in Suburban Hospital naked in handcuffs, and they started recording me. They started recording me. So the objective might have been the purpose of keeping the recording, right? Might have been to try to blackmail me. Maybe they thought they could blackmail me and I'd be terrified and I'd yield to um, their coercion. That didn't happen. What they didn't realize is that the recording, one, it's illegal. It violates 18 USC section 1801, right? That's video voyeurism, right? I was completely naked in handcuffs in public. It violates video voyeurism. Um, what they ended up doing was they provided evidence, recorded evidence of their human rights abuses, how they dehumanized me and violated my constitutional, civil, and human rights. It showed how barbaric they are, right? Montgomery County Police, the SWAT team, and Jide and his accomplices. It's the same thing the Nazis did. When the Nazis dehumanized Jews in their concentration camps, how they're shooting them, placing them in ovens and, stripped them naked, killed kids. They recorded it. They had video recordings, and this was what was used in their trial. And hopefully this will be used in the trial against Jide Iwarere and Montgomery County Police and their accomplices and the Suburban Hospital and MedStar Hospital, and how they violated and dehumanized me, violated my rights and dehumanized me. I'll continue with the video. My name is Olurotimi Osha. I'll keep you posted.